Okay, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, and welcome to Kabbalah Café. It is great to see you all this morning. Oded, it's great to have you back. Oded just got back from 4 weeks?
5.5.
5.5 weeks. Oh my gosh, time flies when you're having fun. In the Holy Land, in Greece, Italy, Greece, and the Holy Land. He did the reverse diaspora. Right, because the Jews went from Israel and were exiled that way. You're like, let's bring them back. You were gathering.
Chronically correctly, we started with Rome, not Rome, but Italy, and then Greece, and then Israel, where it all started.
That's what I'm saying. You went in reverse order. You went right. You went in reverse chronology. The Rome and then back. You bring back. So on the way, he grabbed the menorah from the Vatican, took it back, getting everything back in. I don't know if it's there. If it was there, he grabbed it. Okay, good. So we have a lot to get to. So welcome back. Today we're going to talk about Malchut, which is the theme that we've been speaking of. Malchut, as you know, is the 10th and final Sphira. This is the Sphirot chart. It's the 10th, it's the lowest, it's the most enigmatic. We've talked about a lot of flavors of Malchut. Today, we continue the conversation and take it to the next level. One thing that we know about Malchut that is from our sages' sayings, but also well steeped in Kabbalah, in Jewish mystical thought, is the following. Ein melech belo am. There is no king without a nation. You can't be a self-appointed king. I mean, we call that a dictator. I don't know. Ein melech belo am. You cannot be a king if you don't have a people. Now, on a simple level, it means you can't be a dictator. A dictator is not a king. Two different things. If the people didn't, I don't know if the right word is vote you in because it's not a democracy, but if the people don't accept you, then you're not a king, number one. But number two, on a deeper level, we might say, that if you don't have people, then what kind of king are you? Like the example I give always with this is, if you're on a deserted island, no one's around, are you the king of the island? I mean, you can say that to keep yourself busy and not go meshuggah, on the island, like, I'm the king, hear ye, all ye coconuts. I mean, but you're not a king. Wilson, right. Other than Wilson. But he was a friend of Wilson. He wasn't a king of Wilson, right? Even Tom Hanks got it right.
There's also the delusional effect.
Right. So and by the way, delusional effects are real and everywhere, right? But leaving the delusion of kingdom aside, the reality is that you're not a king on a deserted island with a bunch of animals and trees. It's just not, and birds. It's not a thing. You're not a king. You're a person amongst wildlife. You're not a king. Ein melech belo am means that unless you have a people, you're not a king. Which implies this type of, it's weird, because on the one hand, the king, it says about King Saul, Mishechmo v'lamayla gavoa mikol am. You know what that means? From his shechmo, from his shoulders and above, he was tall. He was greater than the people. Now, physically, he was taller. Like when the prophet, when Samuel was looking for him in the crowd, God said, the king is somewhere. He was looking, he saw this guy sticking out of the crowd. I guess Jews were even short back then. I don't know, okay. But so he sees this guy who's, we would call it head and shoulders above the rest. You ever hear that expression? Head and shoulders above the rest? Chalk it up to Scripture once again. Thank you, Scripture, for giving us that phrase too. Mishechmo. V'lamaylo gavoa mikol am means head and shoulders above the rest, physically, but also spiritually. The king is beyond, the king is transcendent, the king is greater. But when you say the word greater, implicit is a relativism. Greater implies greater than. You with me? There's great, but then there's greater. And I don't mean greater is greater than great. I mean greater implies some sort of relativism. When you say greater, it implies that there's another one that you're talking about. You say, well, this is this, and this is greater than that. I'll give you an example. Let's say a person likes a certain type of car. What's a good type of car? Help me out here. What's a good car? A Ferrari. Excellent. So you tell me like this. You should know a Ferrari, what's comparable to a Ferrari, but not as good?
Oh, wait, it's comparable?
Yeah, but not an Audi.
Yeah.
Okay, you said this. All right, a Ferrari is greater than an Audi. Great. All right, they're both cars. Would you say that a Ferrari is greater than a sea otter? What am I saying? I don't even know what's happening here.
A sea otter.
A seal. A lion. I mean, like, it's greater than a lion? What do you... Mashaychut, like, what's the connection? He said, a Ferrari is greater than a Jaguar. Oh, no, that is a car. That was good. Huh? Greater than a leopard. Greater than a leopard? The person would say, I don't even know what you're talking about. Why is a Ferrari greater than a leopard? Like, what are they, how are you ranking them? It's different than a leopard. It's not greater than a leopard. Greater always implies, it's interesting, because on the one hand, greater implies it's the best. On the other hand, it implies, it's still in a box with something else. That's why, by the way, anytime we talk about God's greatness, we're not talking about God's essence. Kabbalah loves to talk about different dimensions when we speak about God. Whenever you talk about God is so great, He's greater, great. All right, then we're talking about the God as He's already in the modality of relationship with reality. Because God, as He is in His essence, you wouldn't even use such terms as greater than or whatever it is. You wouldn't even say, yeah, God is greater than the snow leopard. I don't even know what you're talking about here. Greater than a leopard. He's not another animal that's bigger and better. That's not even a thing. So again, the point number one is anytime you use the word greater, you're implying almost a duality that has tension. On the one hand, you're saying, it's greater. On the other hand, you're saying, yeah, but it's also not totally out of the box either. If you say that the Ferrari is greater than the Audi, what you're also saying is they're in the same league. Even if you say, it's totally outside of the league, why'd you compare it? Why are you even talking about the other thing? You're mentioning the other thing. It's because there is a connection. They're both things that have four wheels and get you from point A to point B. So even if it's greater, it's still in the same league. Yeah.
It was like greater Atlanta in comparison.
Yeah, exactly. It's still in the box of Atlanta. Good. The same thing is true when we talk about a king. We say, the king is Mishikma v'lamayla gavot mikalam. From his head and above is greater than all the people. He's head and shoulders above the rest. Guess what that implies? He's still a person. He's still a human being. He's not a human being. It's not like the king is suddenly some sort of deity or whatever. He's a person of flesh and blood. He has a head. He has shoulders. It happens to be that he's greater than everyone else. Great. So you would say that, also with wisdom, you would say that this person or this teacher, this whatever, Einstein is more brilliant than his colleagues. Okay, but he still has colleagues. So melech, by definition, means greater. And once you say greater, then there's another that's connected. When we say malchut, none of the other attributes are greater. Chachma is wisdom. Right? Chesed is kindness. Malchut, greater. Greater always implies the other, which makes a lot of sense. Because the role of malchut, being the last and lowest of the energies, is to be able to relate to the next level down. It's always about relating and giving. Meaning, what is the interface that created reality, or what is the dimension that creation interfaces with? Malchut. It's the part of the king, or God, as it were, that is stepped down to relate to us. It's greater than us, but it's still greater, with both of its meanings. Malchut is God's sovereign dimension that's greater than creation. Yeah, but once you say greater, it means that creation is in the conversation. Because if it was truly beyond, you wouldn't call it Malchut. So the moment you hit Malchut is the moment other comes into the conversation. Now, that's what we've said up until now, in one form or another. Even if it doesn't sound familiar, that's what we've been saying. We've been saying that Malchut is a responsive attribute. Ein melech b'lo am. It has to come from the people, related to the people, like a fire that you strike. You produce it only with outside force, etc. Malchut is of a dimension that is related and relatable to the people. Higher than, but related to. Yeah.
Okay. Now, I might be completely wrong, but my understanding was that we all and the world around us is Malchut. Is it wrong?
Malchut is the divine dimension that spawns creation and everything that you and I see. So that means that that Malchut is the dimension is the Sphira that descends to create and form our reality. So would you say that our reality is all Malchut? I don't know. Maybe you could say powered by Malchut. Because Malchut, and it's very important to understand this. When the Kabbalists, when the Mukubalim, when the mystics speak about the architecture of creation, it's always, higher, 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 filter down, Malchut then creates. Now, again, not to sound blasphemous, there you go. I was say blasphemic, but I think that's like a stomach thing. I don't even know what that is. Not to sound blasphemous, right? But because God creates. We have to be very, see the challenge, this is why Kabbalah typically wasn't studied until 40 years old, so that you had enough time for things to settle and be able to hold nuance and not get carried away. Oh, the mystics are saying that Malchut creates. I thought it was God. All right, take it easy. It's God. God creates. But the process, the nuanced process is through the attribute, through the tool of Malchut. Malchut is the dimension that relates to creation, that relates to otherness, etc. So Malchut is, you would say, again, God is the origin of creation. We're not walking anything of that back. It's God, 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 God. However, God's power of Malchut is the hands-on part that creates. That's the whole idea. And again, if you want to look at it just here gravitationally, yeah, Malchut is the lowest level. Boom, that's where creation comes from. However, today we present, because every rule has its exception, so today we present the exception, not really the exception, but we present a caveat, and that is, when it comes to God, since God is so perfect, 1 second, let me step back for a second. The architecture of these 10 sefirot exists in all of the spiritual worlds. Now, in general, Kabbalah speaks of 4 spiritual worlds: Atzilut, Bria, Yetzira, Asiya. Emanation, creation, formation, action, those are your 4 worlds. We live in the lower part of the world of action. Which is why, in Hollywood, when they begin to film, they say, action. Kidding. But maybe, I don't know. Right? We live in the world of action, Asiya. So, this same structure of the 10 sefirot exists in all. So, if you wanted to, it's not like this, but if you wanted to depict it in your mind or whatever it is, again, these things don't have physical shapes, but if you wanted to somehow imagine it, because we are physical, tangible, because we live in the world of Asiya, we live in the world of action. So, as action creatures, if you wanted to picture it physically or tangibly, imagine a circle, and inside the circle, that's each world is a circle, imagine that. And then inside each circle is this configuration known as the partsuf. This is called the partsuf, where you have this kind of structure of 3 columns of the 10 sefirot. Each one, imagine a circle. Imagine we printed on circular paper, which is cool, and I have not seen someone should get on that. Imagine you printed on circular paper, right? And you had 4 of them vertically stacked. Atzilut, Bria, Yetzira, Asiya. What would happen? What would happen is each Malchut would be feeding the next world, and then it would filter down to its own identity, and then it would feed the subsequent world, etc. Every Malchut is the interface. Greater, I lead you, I'm giving to you, I'm creating you. That's where it's coming from. Now, what we're going to do today is talk about the exception or the twist. And what is the twist? The twist is like this. When you speak about God himself, and you speak about the highest of worlds, and you speak about Malchut on the highest of levels, you can't only say that Malchut is greater than. Malchut also contains, on the original formation of Malchut, Malchut also contains a dimension of great, not just greater. Let me explain. I said before that greater always implies another, a relationship to something else. That's lower, but still related to it. But what if you didn't use the word greater? What if you just said great? It still could sound like, well, why are you saying great? But at least you didn't say greater. Great could imply that it within itself is great. It itself is exalted. Not over anything else, but just it is great. The way we refer to this in Kabbalah is hitnasut atzmiyit. Essential greatness. Not over anyone else, but within oneself, it's greatness. Meaning within God himself, it's greatness. The original formulation of Malchut is quintessential greatness that transcends greater than the other. So typically Malchut means greater than, implying a secondary element. But at the highest level, Malchut also could mean essentially great. Not above anything else, but just purely great. Why is this important? I want to frame it. I think with a little framing, it's going to make a lot of sense. One of the implications of Ein Melech B'lo Am, that yes, you are the king, but you did need a people to be a king. You couldn't be greater than the people if there were no people. But one of the implications of that is, of Ein Melech B'lo Am, is, as I said before, if you don't have the will of the people, then you're no longer a king. You're stam a dictator. You're a dictator. Okay, you could be a dictator. You could also be a dictator with ants. Ooh, I crush you now. I'm not suggesting we crush ants. I'm just saying, you could be a dictator with anything. But to be a king, to be greater, implies that you have the will of the people. Ein melech b'lo am. If you don't have the people, there's no king without a people. If you don't have the people on board, you're not a king. You're not a king. This is why. And, it's from speaking of the 15th of Av, from the 15th of Av on, we wish each other K'tiva v'chatima tova. Happy New Year. From the 15th of Av. I know it's a month and a half away, only a month and a half away. But for these, from Chamisha Asar Av, we can already wish people Happy New Year. Sign our email, sign your letter, wishing you a happy and healthy, sweet New Year. This begins now. You don't have to wait till a week before Rosh Hashanah. It begins now. So I think it makes sense to speak a little bit about Rosh Hashanah and what it is. There's a lot, and don't worry, I'm not taking a hard right or hard left. This is not we're not going down a different path. This is all the same thing. And you'll see in a second. There are many themes of Rosh Hashanah, or the high holidays in general. And people come into the high holidays, I think a lot of people have been told that it's days of judgment, days of awe. It's a time to be afraid, a time to I don't know, maybe beat yourself up a little bit, whatever. There's a lot of themes out there. But when you study Kabbalah, you realize that there's one, and you realize, first of all, you can't mush everything together. Rosh Hashanah has its theme, and Yom Kippur has its theme. They're not the same day. If they were, then it would be one and done. We wouldn't have all these separate days. Two different energies. I mean, there might be an overarching theme, but there's two different energies. Rosh Hashanah is, despite whatever else you heard before, one thing. Hachtarat HaMelech. It's the coronation of the king. That's what it is. You and I show up and we say, Hashem, God Almighty, we want you as our king. That's it. I just made the davening that much shorter for you, by the way. It's like 7 words. God, we want you as our king. I got the 7.
Let's eat.
Huh?
Let's eat.
Let's eat. Let's dip our apples in the honey. Let's go feed the fish, and that's it. Let's go, right? That's it. We want you as our king. By the way, if you think well, how do I have the chutzpah to make that up? First of all, if you look in your red Kahat Machzorim, the prayer books for holidays and look to the back, you'll see my name in it. Or in the front, sorry. So I can make things up because I helped with the addition of it. But in addition to that, here's a real point. All joking aside. Look through the prayers. Read what the prayers say. HaMelech HaKadosh. That's the only one I can remember right now. All of on Rosh Hashanah, all of the prayers say, God, you're king, God, you're king, God, you're king. It's the same theme throughout the day. Yes, there are other there's things that we say because we always say and we always pray in those ways. But the primary theme of Rosh Hashanah is, God, you are our king. It's a day in which we are reestablishing our relationship with God. And let me frame it mystically. The mystics say that God invests in the world 1 year at a time. God says, I pledge to give energy, life, to sustain reality. And it's not just our world. It's the entire structure that supports this world. Listen, Kabbalah says that this world is the purpose, is the focal point of all of creation. The angels, the heavens, the spiritual realities, all the 4 worlds that we spoke about, they only exist to support our reality. You and I, Torah, mitzvot, doing good deeds, and making this world a home for Hashem. That's the whole tachlit. That's the purpose of everything. If that disappears, you don't need anything else. Imagine you're filming a movie somewhere. Hey, Natan, good to see you. Imagine you're filming a movie. Great to see you. Yeah, you're filming a movie. And if you want to film a movie, I mean, not that I've ever filmed a movie, but can you imagine how many people you need involved? I don't mean like a Blair Witch Project where you're shaking the camera around and running around for an hour and a half. I mean, at least I don't remember exactly what that was, but something like that. But a real film, a real production. You have location directors and you have grips. I don't even know what a grip does. I'm assuming they hold on to something really tightly. You have the grip, you have the camera people, you have the lighting, you have the this, you have the makeup, you have the actors, you have the director, you have the producers, you have the writers, you have you have the people that hold the bottles of water. Because that's very important. You might have 50 people on set, on location, not even in Hollywood or in Burbank, wherever they film. I mean, on location in Atlanta somewhere. You ever follow those yellow signs? Ever see those yellow signs? Cryptically telling you where they're filming? And then imagine if someone decides, you know what? If the director decides we don't need this scene anymore. What happens? Everyone goes home. It's over. It's finished. We don't need you. We only need you all in order to shoot this scene. If we're not shooting the scene, go home. We don't need you anymore. The whole purpose of creation is this, you and me, Torah, mitzvot, that's it, making a difference. Make the world a better place. If that disappears, then nothing else is needed. God invests in the entire production 1 year at a time, a 1 year lease on life. How do we know this? Torah says, that God's eyes are upon the land from the beginning of the year until the end of the year. What does that mean? Every year is a new lease. From the beginning to the end. And then what? Hopefully it starts again. It's not constant. It could have just said, God's eyes in land are tamid, always. Doesn't say that. From the beginning of the year to the end of the year. That implies there's a beginning and an end. So, every Rosh Hashanah, what happens? We show up and we gather together and we say to God, God, we want you, we vote you in for another year. Invest in us. And that's what God does and has done for the last many thousands of years. And thus, we're all here. And we've lived happily ever after. However, the mystics, it is said, would feel, as Rosh Hashanah came in, a diminishment of energy until the shofar was sounded on the day of Rosh Hashanah. Why is that important? Why is that? What is the shofar? The shofar is likened to the trumpet blast of the coronation, when we're coronating God as king. So we all show up and we say, God, we want you as king, God. And God's maybe in the palace. You want him on the balcony. I'm saying, yes, I'm here. And then you blow the trumpets. That's what's happening on Rosh Hashanah. Hachtarat HaMelech. It's a coronation of the king. which explains why Yom Kippur comes after that. Because seemingly it doesn't make any sense. Why would Yom Kippur come? Yom Kippur is about fixing things up. You should fix things up and then move on to a new year. So why do we do the opposite? This explains it. If we don't have a relationship, then what are we fixing? You first have to establish a relationship, and then we can say, let's work on it. Otherwise, imagine you go over to a stranger and say, I apologize. They'll be like, I'd like a restraining order. I don't know who you are. Like, what are you saying? You apologize. I'm sorry for not calling you. Do I know you? What are you saying? I'm sorry I forgot to call you last Tuesday. Like, I'm being gaslit. I don't even know who you are. You can't have Yom Kippur before Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah says, God, you're meaningful to me. I want you in my life. Yom Kippur says, let's work on the relationship. Or, I need to work on the relationship. And this is my pledge to how to, form the relationship in the right way. Rosh Hashanah is a day of coronation. And as I said, the mystics tell us that if we would, God forbid, wouldn't show up, then maybe God wouldn't invest. We do show up and God invests, but without that, because Ein Melech B'lo Am, without a people, there's no king. Without our request, God doesn't respond. It comes from us and then is reflected by Him. However, that's only in the last 5,785 years or whatever it is. What happened year one? What happened when God first created the world? Did someone ask for it? What happened the first time God leased life for the first year? Was that as a result of a petition? Did someone ask? The first time. Was there someone saying, God, be our king? What do you think? The first time. The answer is no. Why not? Because no one existed. When God first created the world and Adam and Eve, there were no people to request that. Subsequently, every Rosh Hashanah, we petition that. So in the language of Kabbalah, here's how it's phrased. The first time God creates, ki chafetz chesed hu, because God is kind and loves kindness and wants kindness, and God bestows kindness, and therefore He gave life unilaterally. But ever since, God says, you ask me. If you ask me, I'll invest. If you ask me to be your king, I'll be your king. But it's got to come from you. So that very first time that God flexed His malchut, it was inside out, not outside in. It was Him asserting it. It wasn't being stirred, evoked, awakened by others. It was self-induced, not other-induced. Does that make sense? The first time. Subsequently, you and I have to pull it out of Him. Not that it's hard, not that God's playing hard to get, but you have to say, be our king. God says, sure. But the first time, it was unilateral, from the inside out. This is the higher dimension of Malchut. Not Malchut in the sense of God, of the king responding to the needs of the people or the requests of the people, but rather the king asserting his own essential greatness, not greater thanness, but greatness, and then creating. So in our mimer, in our discourse, the previous Rebbe talks about this and says, although Malchut, as we say, is typically the lowest dimension that relates to what's beneath it, nonetheless, for our conversation, nonetheless, there is a dimension of Malchut by God that is essential or quintessential, unilateral, inside out, not awakened by others, not awakened by the people, but awakened by the king himself. And that was on full display the very first time God created the world. The idea that God recreates the world every year is something that is motivated or requested. That's something that's triggered by us. But the first time it wasn't triggered by us. Now, to be fair, it does say that what triggered it is almost God's perception of what that would be. Meaning God perceived what that type of relationship would be like and then created the world based on that desire for that relationship. So you still could say that there was an other involved in that, but it's still self-generated. It wasn't other-generated. By the way, this is a good thing to take into the high holiday season. There's so many times the high holidays are marked by or framed as, days of awe and days of fear and days of dread, and God is looking to get you, and all God wants is the relationship. I don't want to make God sound needy, but we've all seen The Bachelor, right? All you want to do is get picked with that final rose, right? Right? God's like, are you going to give me the rose? You're going to give it to someone else. Like, and by the way, throughout the year, we often give our roses to others. So you can say, okay, there's God and then there's football. I don't know. Today it's playoffs. I don't know if I have time for you, God, today. Today, the final rose is going to go to the NFL. I'm sorry. You came in second. You're interviewed. God's interviewed. It's like, I thought I had a chance. No, it's going to the NFL. It's going to football. Throughout the year, we make choices. And we're not always perfect. And yes, God created us like this. It's not like he's shocked. He's like, I know, I got you. Like, I made that. Like, I know you better than you know you. I made you like this.
God's there with the football players too.
You're right, that's also true, right. Right. Maybe football is more divine than we thought. Look, the point is that throughout the year, we make choices, we make compromises. And on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, it's about getting back to our core identity, who we really are. It's reasserting who we are. For ourselves, it's good to know, it's good for you and I to know what we're really about.
You're looking for minyan? Mikveh. Outside.
It's next to the other building. Right here. I don't think he's going to find it from him with that little directional. It's right next to that other building. Is he getting it?
No,
There?
He wants to go to the mikveh.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Let's see if he finds it. Yeah. Okay. So far, so good.
Yeah, so far so good.
Yeah. He doesn't know the code. That's more complicated. All right. Oh, look! Yeah, he found it. Hey, I'm a natural.
Maybe
They
he had the code.
Maybe he has the code. I should have been there in the desert. They wouldn't have been wandering for 40 years. Been like, Israel's right over there. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Huh?
Ask at least 5 times.
They had GPS, God positioning system, and they still couldn't get there. All right, look, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, I think one of the great injustices of our times and maybe even old times is to frame Judaism in a scary way. By the way, and if you're like, well, don't the prayers say that? Some of them do. I don't know. But when you study Kabbalah and Chassidut, you realize that God is not out to get you. The whole notion of an angry God who's like, I don't know, where have you been? I'm about to do some smiting. It's just like it's smiting season. That's the God you want to believe in? Really? It's like the Berditchever Rebbe met someone who says, I don't believe in God anymore. He says, why don't you believe in God? He talked about all his grievances against God. He said, you know what, I agree with you. The God that you don't believe in, I also don't believe in. Right? An angry God, a vengeful God, and this and that. So how do you square that with, verses and prayers that seem to imply that? Okay, you have to read it like a mystic. He couldn't get in. Well, I'll have to come back for the code. Or go to the shul, ask somebody. There you go. We've pointed him on the, listen, if you give someone the fish, they only drink from what? If you teach them how to fish, not that you should go fishing in the mikveh, that's not recommended. Back to the story. Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, I think, get a bad rap. And people feel like guilt and they feel tension. It's very tense. The Hasidic, in the mystical tradition, it's a tremendous time, it's a tremendous opportunity. An opportunity to reassert who you are and who you want to be and what's important in your life and your values and your priorities. And Rosh Hashanah is, you say, God, you come first. That's Rosh Hashanah. The totality of Rosh Hashanah is, God, you are important to me. I want you in my life. You get the rose. The final rose. The only rose. You get the rose. You're meaningful to me. You're important to me. I want you as my king. I want that my life should be dedicated to you and not running after all the stuff that doesn't actually mean anything at the end of the day. Because at the end of the day, does it matter that the Steelers win the Super Bowl? The answer is yes. Of course it does. I'm kidding. But does it really, at the end of the day, is that one exception. 2 roses. 2 roses. You have 2 roses. Okay. God is important. That's Rosh Hashanah. Yom Kippur is again connecting with that energy. Is he in? All right. He got to go. Beautiful. By the way, that's why before we start Yom Kippur, we do the same thing. The opening prayer. Kol nidrei v'asarei v'charomei. Kol nidrei. Everyone shows up. Right? Everyone's like, oh, but this is the most powerful service of the year. Kol nidrei. Until you hit Ne'ilah also. But Kol nidrei, it's unbelievable. The opening salvo shot of Yom Kippur. Everyone's shuckling. The ark is open. The Torahs are out. Everyone's feeling the awe of the day. Yom Kippur. Kol nidrei. Read the fine print. Read the translation. Any vows that I've taken should hereby be annulled. Okay, and you're crying about that? You're crying about a legal technical declaration? What is happening here? Do you always cry at terms and conditions when you sign contracts? Right? Yeah, it's like, oh, I can't believe I'm clicking the yes on the terms and conditions. Are you kidding me? You just downloaded an app and you agreed to give away your life. Can I tell you something? This is crazy. There's a new AI. AI, it's everywhere. Even things that are not AI 5 years ago are now AI, right? Everything's AI. QuickBooks, you can automate your payroll thing. We'll recur it, but it's now AI QuickBooks. I'm like, AI. What are you doing? Soon it's going to be banks. Banks oh, you want to make a recurring payment? AI can help you. How about just recurring payment? I don't need the AI.
How about I don't even do recurring payment? I look at my bill because there have been mistakes.
That's also true, right? That's also true. Anyway, so
More time though.
So there's this. I don't know why I'm talking about this thing that reads all your things. Oh yeah. So somebody suggests there's new AI from Chabad headquarters. They're pulling together resources for Chabad houses and shluchim, whatever, to use it to leverage AI for the shlichut, for the Chabad activities. And so they have all these suggestions, different tools, and it's amazing. And one of the tools they suggested is something called Whisper Flow. It's a way that you can just dictate. If you want to dictate a text, an email, whatever, you dictate it, and it automatically fixes it. It doesn't just transcribe it. It fixes it up. It puts it into paragraphs. It doesn't rewrite it, but it at least organizes it. If you do or this, or repeat words, it will cut that out to the best of its ability, and then obviously you review it and whatever. And you could have it on your phone for text messages, whatever. So I'm like, that sounds cool. I don't mind trying it out. Maybe it'll save time for something. I don't know. So I download it, and then I'm reading the terms and conditions. And I start crying, like Kol Nidre. Oh, we are going to be taking screenshots periodically of the page. We are looking at the page that you're on. Meaning everything that's on your phone, if you're on the bank, right, and there's a thing that you click to input text, anytime you input text, it reads your screen. Why? No. It's giving us better understanding of the context so that we can dictate better, whether it's an email or a text or this. But meanwhile, every piece of sensitive information on your phone didn't give any exceptions. Once a text box pops up, it is activated, and it reserves the right to read your screen. I'm like, thank you very much. And I deleted the app before using it.
Hopefully you have deleted that.
Right? I was thinking that. I know. So I'm like, how do I know that? It doesn't pop up anymore, but I'm like, maybe there's a trace. Maybe we should speak after the class or something. Yeah, I need to know that it's, back to the point. A legal declaration like Kol Nidre and everyone's getting emotional. But you know what it really means? Kol Nidre means all of the promises I made, all of the times I sold myself out throughout the year, all of the roses I gave others, I hereby annul that. I take it back. I take it back. All of the promises, all of the pledges, all the times I sold my soul to other forces, to other entities, to Gesund. Every time I sold my soul to Aaron Rodgers, Gewalt, right? Kidding. Every time I sold my soul, I gave, I pledged, I this and that to the other, Kol Nidre, Vesare, V'charame, etc. All of them, forgetting the words, all of the times that I pledged, that I sold, that I promised, that I swore to other things. I hereby disavow that. I say I wasn't thinking right. And I give that up because it's only about you. That's why it's so powerful. You might have heard the tradition that this was composed by the conversos, those that outwardly converted in 1492 and in 1497 in Spain and Portugal. That every year on Yom Kippur, they would say, all of the promises we made, all of the outward appearances of being not of the Jewish faith, that's not the real, that's a lie. This is the real me. And that's the emotion, but the truth is, you don't have to be from 1492 to have the same experience. Because we also do that to some extent. We also pretend, and we also, to ourselves, and present a false view of self. And what is Yom Kippur? Yom Kippur is, once again, reaching out and saying, God, you are my boss. You are in charge. You are the only reality. You are my king. Whether it's Rosh Hashanah or the beginning of Yom Kippur, it's all the same thing. The same thing. The theme is acknowledging God as the one. And that's a necessary part of the energy flow of the new year. But the first time around, it was unilateral. It came from God. And now we're going to read this inside, where he introduces this higher dimension of Malchut, the Malchut that's not dependent on anything else, a Malchut that is self-generated. Okay, if you don't mind, please take and pass. Please take and pass. I will be, look at this. 1, 2. If you find other pages there, including my shopping list, I'm kidding. If you find other pages there, feel free to disregard. And let's get rolling. Okay.
Quick question.
Yeah.
To Kol Nidre. Does it mean that pledges to other people are not affected, or they are?
Excellent. It does not absolve us of pledges and promises that we've made to others. This is about our commitments to God. And selling ourselves out in other ways. So if you borrowed money, $1, $3 for the MARTA, yeah, you still owe that guy the cash. All right, let's jump in to the text. Now we're going to begin on page 80. Page 80. Last time we spoke about 42 and 49. That was last week. Today we speak about inherent exaltedness. Now, when you hear the word inherent exaltedness, that's what we've been talking about. Not exalted over someone else, but inherently exalted. Let's go. Now he says, because revelation meaning revelation of divine energy to create the world, takes place through Malchut, which is the lowest of the Sfirot. It is called name, shame. It's called name, which is a revelation to others. Just like a name exists for the sake of others, so too Malchut exists for the sake of others. Again, if you're on a desert island, there's two things that are true. You're not a king and you don't need a name. Right? If you're on a desert island, you don't need a name because there's no one else. And you're not a king because there's no one else. So that's why Malchut and shame are correlated. In Kabbalah, when you encounter the concept of shame, that's Hebrew for name, you know it's a euphemism for Malchut. It's the same idea. Let's continue. And although the fact that Malchut is called name refers to Malchut in general, even as it exists in the highest world, the world of Atzilut, so let's just say this is the top world. So you have the Malchut. Malchut as name and revelation is also true for that Malchut up here. Nevertheless, he says, Malchut, as it exists in that highest world in Atzilut, is in a state of his hitnasut atzmit, inherent exaltedness, page 82. As in the phrase, Adon Olam Asher Malach B'terem Kol Yitzur Nivra, Lord of the universe who reigned before anything was created. Look at that phrase. God reigned before anything else was created. Asher Malach, God, you were king. B'terem Kol Yitzur, before anything else was created. So I'll ask you a question. How could you be king before anything else? We just said, to be a king, you need a people. How could you be a king before? Because there's an idea of inherent exaltation. When it comes to God, God can be even king before anything else. Because to say that would be to limit God. That's what we mean that God is inherent exaltedness. What does it mean? Even before there's anything else, God is not just greater than, God is great. God is king before there was anything else. Make sense? 4, supernal kingship is not like terrestrial kingship. In the terrestrial realm, i.e. in our reality, the nation chooses the king, coronates him, and thereby awakens within him the attribute of kingship, which is the power of exaltedness, as we've said. As explained above, this awakening must be instigated by others, and the others must be other humans, not ants and not volleyballs. But in the supernal realm, i.e. in Atzilut, the concept of the Sephira of Malchut, exaltedness, existed before the worlds were created. Again, in the original configuration you had in the highest world, before anything else was spawned, you had the full 10 Sefirot, including Malchut. Hold on. Well, who awakened that? There's nothing beneath it. Okay, so there's inherent exaltedness. Hitnasut atzmit. You have inherent exaltedness. God can also be exalted without anything else, because he can pull off everything, including that. You and I, in order to be a melech, to be a king, we need others to awaken it. But God can pull it off by himself unilaterally from the inside out. But again, important, subsequently, God wants us to pull that out from within him, like in a typical situation. But originally, the first time on the highest level, God initiated that. God self-initiates Malchut. Let's continue. Now, the concept of exaltedness over the worlds is the fact that Malchut, and this is now talking about how Malchut affects the rest of creation. It's the fact that Malchut, remember I told you, like, imagine circles with this, the 10 Sefirot in each circle, Atzilut, Bria, Yitzira, Asiya. So what happens with the highest Malchut? Here he explains. Malchut pierces through the curtain, and that's not a literal curtain, but it's a divide that is between Atzilut, that's the highest world, and the 3 lower worlds of Bria, Yitzira, Asiya, and becomes Atik, the crown of Bria. So what happens is, basically you have, again, imagine this is of Atzilut, the highest world, Malchut, right? Malchut of the highest world. There's a divide between whatever comes beneath it. There's a curtain, so to speak, a division. Malchut pierces through the curtain, like a coffee machine, which is not here but over there. It's got the claws, pierces through the curtain, and becomes now the crown, the top of whatever comes next. Investing itself in the act of creation. Let's continue. Page 84. Of this level it is said, Ki niskav shemo levado, for his name is sublimely transcendent, it is unto himself. Even his name, Malchut, is transcendent and exalted over the world. So again, what you have here is a duality within Malchut. There's Malchut in Atzilut, the highest world, as it exists as inherent exaltedness, transcendent exaltedness, not higher than, but just high, or great, not greater, but great. And that's Malchut in Atzilut. And then you have Malchut as it descends and pierces and becomes the top of the next scale of reality. This is the significance, let's continue, 84, of his name was proclaimed king over them. Melech Shemo Nikra Aleim. His name was proclaimed king over them. Malchut relates to the worlds only in a transcendent manner. This is similar to the name of a king. Now we circle back to what I wrote, the theme of the class in the email. Thank God I've given myself 2 minutes to focus on the theme. Right? It's like the name of a king, which spreads out over the country. Its presence exists only in a transcendent sense. I'm going to read this and then explain. The laws of the country are what control the country in an immanent sense, whereas the name of the king is only transcendent. For his name is sublimely transcendent. It is exalted and transcendent, and only its radiance is upon the heavens, the earth, and the heavens. Ki niskav shemo levado, hodo al eretz v'shamayim. It's only his radiance that is upon the earth and the heavens. Let me explain. Imagine you have a villager. The villager has never met the king. The villager will not break any of the laws of the king. I ask you a simple question. Mr. Villager or Mrs. Villager, why are you not going to violate the laws of the king? What are they going to say? It's the law. It's the rule. I know it's the law, but why aren't you going to violate it? Because the king. Have you ever seen the king? No. Back in the way. Before social media. You ever seen the king? No. Have you ever met the king? No. What is this king? What are we talking about here? You're not going to do it because of the king? The king rules by reputation, by his name. The king. You say, king, oh my God. Here, guy comes with a scroll on a horse. Hear ye, right? Rolls it out, as they did back in the day, as I would love to do today somewhere. If anybody knows anyone that needs a good old hear ye, right? Hear ye, by royal decree, no longer shall, blah, 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 blah. If you go out with your armor, whatever it is, it's got to be, bronze and not silver. I don't know what I'm talking about, right? But like this stuff, right? You got to go this way, that way. And like, okay. Why? How? What? Where? What? Because the king said it? You don't even know who the king is. You've never met the king. Could be a rumor. Like the Wizard of Oz. Some dude behind the curtain. What's happening here? Just a regular dude. A king rules by reputation. Not by like grabbing the person.
Fear of consequence.
But it's a fear of a consequence of someone you've never met. It's by reputation, by shame, by their name. Oh, the king. King? What's the king even? By the way, sometimes let's move to like normal human beings. Sometimes you don't want to meet your heroes because you'd rather the name of the hero than the person that's actually there. Right? What do they say? Never meet your heroes and never be disappointed. Because the name is, this person is amazing. And then you meet them and they're stam,
Society needs this class.
I was about to say that. Huh?
Saying society needs this class. Vanity.
But it's even whatever. It's like, that guy. That's why it's like you always bring in, you're bringing a speaker from out of town. Great, you respect them. Somebody local, like, that guy is going to speak and inspire us. I know him. Like, how could he inspire me? I've seen him at carpool. He's going to inspire everyone. Like, what's happening here? It's like, you know what I mean? It's like, all I know is a reputation. Great. I know them. The king rules by reputation. That's the power of shame, the power of a name. His reputation. Ki niskav shemo levado. The name itself is enough to keep us in check. So Malchut is transcendent in Atzilut. His name is transcendent. Rak hodo al eretz v'shamayim. It's only his. It's like a reflection of the ray of the light of Malchut that actually comes and pierces through the curtain and comes here. We're getting a glimmer of all that. We get a glimmer. That's what comes down. That's what filters down. Let's continue inside and we'll close out chapter 6. Earth and heavens, because we said its radiance is upon earth and heaven. So what is earth and heavens? Earth and heavens in this context refer to upper Gan Eden, which is Bria, and lower Gan Eden, which is Yetzirah, right? I wish I would have done a chart with the worlds. Would have been handy. Atzilut is the highest world, but then you have Bria, Yitzira, Gan Eden Elyon, Gan Eden Tachton, higher Gan Eden, lower Gan Eden, different worlds, within which shines only the radiance of the divine splendor, not the whole divine splendor itself, but only a radiance, that which pierces through the curtain and shines down, cut down a few times. And even this radiance, 86, provides wondrous spiritual pleasure without end. Hey, it's paradise, right? Gan Eden. Since it is radiance from the level of his name, yet it is only splendor and radiance. And he's saying, look, can you imagine if only like a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of the light still does so much? Can you imagine what the real thing is? Oh, unbelievable. And that's only Malchut still. Malchut is the lowest of the Sefirot, and it remains above, and only its radiance goes below, and yet that provides wondrous pleasure of Gan Eden, of paradise, of which it says in the Talmud says this, Ayin Le'ra says, it's from Scripture, it says, Ayin Le'rata Lakim Zulatecha, no eye has beheld anything other than, anything like God, meaning that all of the physical pleasure, can you imagine the greatest physical pleasure in this world is incomparable to the pleasure of Gan Eden, of paradise, of the Garden of Eden, which is the reward for souls having, fulfilled their mission down here on earth. And yet all of that pleasure is like a drop, a diluted drop from what Malchut is. And Malchut is the lowest of the Sefirot. Can you imagine? Can you imagine what's going on here? It's crazy. Let's continue 86. What invests itself in the worlds internally to give them life, and Mark, this relates back to what you were saying about Malchut. What invests itself in the worlds internally to give them life is only the letters of speech of Malchut. As the verse says, B'dvar Hashem shamayim nasu, by the word of God the heavens were made. It says further, you ata, va'ata machayet kulam, you ata give life to them all. Ata is Aleph Taf, which refers to the letters from Aleph to Taf. They, the letters of Malchut, reveal only an external ray of divinity, and even this external ray undergoes tzimtzum, contraction after tzimtzum, contraction. As it says, they will declare the glory of your kingdom, Malchut, Malchutcha, Malchut kol alamim. Yeah, is that what it is? They'll declare, no. They will declare the glory of your kingdom, Malchut, and tell of your strength. Which verse is that? 86. I don't have the Hebrew alongside it. Yeah. Oh no. Malchutcha yomeru ugvuratcha yidaberu. Right. So they will declare the glory of your kingdom, Malchut, and tell of your strength. Strength in this context referring to the level of gvurat and tzimtzum, meaning Malchut is then cut, tzimtzum cut down to size, limited, contracted. And because of this, the worlds came into being as actual and self-aware beings, and that's why you and I are as we are, where we don't sometimes sense even that God is present. How is that possible? If it all comes from God? Well, it comes from God by way of Malchut, which is then cut down, so many times, not that God's cut down, but that the light, the revelation of that is cut down so many times and contracted so many times that by the time it reaches us, all we sense is that we're alive and this is real, and we don't intuitively or we don't obviously sense in an overt fashion that God is behind all of this, that God is the true architect. Not only architect, but God is a true reality of our reality. We don't see it. And why is that and how is that? It's through Malchut. What he described, and we've done this for a few months now, so this actually concludes the first part of this discourse, which is the majority, by the way. The first part of the discourse, like part one, is explaining Malchut and explaining the process of creation. If you recall at the beginning of this book, a lot of the opening objective was to explain the duality of the Jewish calendar year. You have two poles, 6 months apart, Tishrei and Nisan. You have the month of creation and the month of redemption, of freedom. Right? So what's the difference? So he's focused on the first part, which is creation. And to explain creation, he got into Malchut, because Malchut is the key to creation. Malchut is the interface, is the touch point for everything that comes beneath it. So that's why Malchut, this, that, the qualities of Malchut, the pros and, not that there's cons, but the idiosyncrasies of Malchut. The whole last page after page after page, focusing on what Malchut is and how it operates. ultimately to get to the fact that Malchut is a divine attribute that is sublimely transcendent and yet imminently relatable, whose ray, even its name is transcendent, but then a ray from that name breaks through, but then that ray is then further cut down. The letters of the ray of the name filter into this world, but ultimately when it hits our reality, it's so occluded, I don't know if that's the right word, it's so diminished, diluted, that what we sense is the creation and not the architecture behind it until we study Kabbalah. And our minds open up, like all of this are letters of creation. It's the matrix, but it's all God. It's all godly energy, but we don't see it.
It's like you live in a house, an apartment. You live there day to day, but like how often do you think about when was it built? Who was the architect? Where is it designed?
Right. What's the genesis? What's the story behind it? We take the walls for granted. We don't see behind the walls. And we don't see that the actual structure, the actual letters of creation are divine. And that's by design. It's not a fluke. It's literally by design so that we should have the test of either believing that this is all there is or recognizing and embracing and living by the truth that God is the underlying reality here. And that's, if it was too easy, that wouldn't be the point of creation. The point of creation is to create a space where it's so diluted. That's why God diluted it, right? So diluted that now it becomes a challenge. It's a test. Will you discover the truth or will you remain in the facade? That's it. Yeah, there are the higher realms. They know where they're at. And Bria and Yetzirah in the higher worlds, forget Atzilut, even Bria, Yetzirah, in Gan Eden, that's where the souls and the angels are. They know what's up. They know what's what. They know that they're not real. I mean, that they're not the ultimate. They know that God is real, and they sense, and they want, and they strive, and they yearn, and they, blow themselves up, not in that way, but they almost unravel themselves out of their yearning for God. That's and you and I are like, great, when's lunch? I mean, we're totally that. We're not striving. We're right here. We're leaning in. We're leaning into this reality until we encounter Kabbalah or other things that kind of wake us up a little bit and remind us that there's something behind the matrix. And that's what Malchut is. So to summarize Malchut, what is Malchut? Malchut is the key to this reality, a reality that seems independent, but is of course not independent. The role of Malchut is to create self-aware beings. I think that was the last line. Was that the last line of chapter 6? The last line, the bottom line of chapter 6. And because of this, the worlds came into being as actual and self-aware beings. Because of Malchut. Because of God, yes, but utilizing this process, which includes at its core Malchut. Not through Chachma, not through Bina, not through Dat, not through Chesed, not through Gvura, not through Netzach, not through Hod, not through Yesod. Malchut is the key to this process. It's the lowest, but it's the one that does all the work. It's the one that brings it down. It's the one that goes in. Malchut is the key to all of this. Malchut is synonymous with creation. Malchut is synonymous with our reality as a world that doesn't immediately bespeak God. That doesn't immediately declare, hey, it's God that made. No, a world that looks self-contained. It's Malchut that provides the challenge of life. The challenge that you and I know, not because we read it in a book, but because we're living it each and every day. The challenge of waking up in the morning and asking yourself, why am I here? To make money? Right? To just, to go about my day? To just, eat, sleep, work, repeat? Or is it for some higher purpose? Tethered, recognizing that this is not as real as it seems and there's a purpose underlying it and God is here and God is in everything and how do I reveal that? And that's a completely different life. And that's the purpose of life, is to live in that tension and to make the right choice in every moment. That it shouldn't be too easy. It can't be impossible either. If it's impossible, then no one's gonna win the game. You can't make, if you're designing a video game, you can't make it unwinnable. It's too frustrating. No one's gonna play it. But if it's too easy, no one's gonna play it either. It's gotta be the perfect balance of just hard enough to keep you frustrated, but with enough opportunity to win that gives you that taste of victory. That's exactly what this is. And it's all through Malchut. Now, if you want to know what the month of Nisan is, 6 months later, the month of redemption, that's when the facade comes out. That's when God pulls off the mask, and says, oh, hey, I'm here. And that shows up as a miracle. But creation is where everything is hidden, where you don't see the truth. And that's the first half of the year. That's what we're about to come into. High holidays, right? Creation, the month of creation, month of Tishrei. Creation is where God hides himself. Nisan, Exodus, that's where God says, surprise, it's me, I'm here. And then you can't even not believe if you wanted to. It's like, go explain the splitting of the sea. I know today people try to explain it, but like if you were there, go explain it. Not going to happen. And there's purpose in that also. So far we've covered the first half of the year. Not bad. Didn't take us 6 months, right? Even though that's the span that we're talking about. Tishrei through Adar, we covered. First half of the year is the idea of creation, the energy of Malchut. So again, what is the homework for this week? I gave homework last week, I think. All right. I don't even remember what it was, so I hope you did. I hope you did your homework. If I want to remember, I'll have to either ask you or ask myself, check in with myself, or look at a recording. But either way, which, by the way, I have not yet posted. It's been a very busy week with the yeshiva and other things, so I'm like behind a lot of things. But I will give homework again this week. It doesn't, just because I don't remember last week doesn't mean I can't remember right now. So, homework for this week is recognize a moment in which you might otherwise be, I don't mean this in a bad way, I mean this in a human way, oblivious to the truth. Whether it's changing the way you wake up in the morning, instead of just waking up and thinking about your day, wake up. So again, tune into a moment in which you don't think typically about the Creator, about the source, about the truth behind the moment, and you think more about the moment, and try to pause and take a few moments to redirect. So whether it's waking up in the morning saying Modani first thing. And maybe if you say Modani, but maybe it's by rote because you've always said it. But maybe think a little bit more kavanah, a little bit more intentionality when you say it. To really put yourself in a space of, I'm not just waking up for another day, but God has given me life. This breath that I'm taking is not my breath. It's God's breath, the gift of God's breath flowing through me. And that's a completely different experience. And so my day begins with gratitude. Modeh ani, modeh, hoda'ah. I acknowledge, Yehudi, I am not me or I exist, but God, you've made me to be. And that's a different reality. Or whether it's in the middle of the day, when you find yourself, feeling what you're feeling, and whether it's distracted or anxious or, whatever it is, whatever emotion it is that might be a negative emotion, to try to flip it back. And recognize that this is an opportunity, this is a moment where God is reaching out as well. And in that way, our week, hopefully, please God, will be uplifted and transcendent. Thank you for joining me. Once again, a very happy birthday to Dr. Maxey, a good friend personally of me and my family and the family, and as well as the community. And we miss you because you're not as close as you in the Atlanta immediate vicinity. Yeah, a good 5 hours away, but always sending lots of love and lots of blessings and only amazing things. It should be an amazing year.
Amen, and thank you.
Absolutely, my pleasure. All right, good to see everyone. Shavua Tov, have a great week, and we'll see you soon. Tomorrow, Taste in Torah, Tuesday night, Torah studies, and the week goes on. Dr. Maxey, good to see you. Happy birthday again. Ellen, good to see you. David and Sarah, good to see you. And Mark, good to see you. We'll see you guys. Have a wonderful week. Take care. Shavua Tov.